This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. It's been a bit of a strange time in the gear industry, I think, for a little bit of a while. I can remember, not long ago, kind of thinking that what are PRS doing? Why are they making these SE guitars, creep up in price? What is this about? And for me, kind of Gibson and Fender, I thought were like the obvious choices in a lot of ways for a lot of players, particularly for me because I bought a PRS DGT used, and when I got my first Gibson Les Paul from 2002 and compared it to it, I felt like the PRS really didn't have much vibe in comparison to that Gibson. And in the end, I ended up selling that PRS DGT and was kind of glad to see the back of it. I never really bonded with that guitar at all. Since then, the PRS Silver Sky SE came out. I tried a couple of those, 3 of those in fact. They played really nicely. I really like the neck shape. For me, I had a couple of issues with the E string kind of wanting to break on a lot of them, but the quality in terms of build quality was generally really good. I think the specs were good and stuff like that. And at the time I kind of compared it to a Mexican player, which was considerably cheaper in the UK actually, but I think in the US similar sort of price. That was like literally what they were competing with. And I felt like for me, the Silver Sky actually had specs that felt better to me. Then after that, the PRS DGT SE came out, and these crept over the £1,000 barrier in the UK, and I kind of had to buy one because I thought, let's just see, because we knew what was going to happen. You were going to see a lot of videos, saying they're just as good as the core models, from folks that have been sent them and stuff like that. So I was, healthily skeptical about it and kind of wanted to see what it was all about. And you may or may not have seen a bunch of my videos kind of praising this as a guitar, because I think it's a fantastic guitar at pretty much any price range. Plays really well, sounds fantastic, looks pretty good, does have the birds, but if you don't want birds, there's the gold version with the moons. And this is kind of a bunch of thoughts that I've kind of had over time. Like, I did a video last week about what are Fender doing wrong that they aren't managing to retain people like John Mayer, Philip Sayce. Why aren't players like Mark Lettieri and Josh Smith playing Fender guitars when they were playing essentially, well, of course John Mayer was playing Fender guitars, of course Philip Sayce was. Something is going on A&R wise, financially, all of that stuff, that is meaning that these guys are checking out other options. And I think one of the things that PRS kind of has over those other two companies, seemingly, is that the guy who started the company is still very much at the head of the company, kind of directing things, and he definitely plays guitar, right? You can see him on that pedal show. He seems to be passionate about actual guitar music and playing guitars, and not a venture capitalist, basically, which I think, because they are that massive kind of corporate things, Fender and Gibson, sometimes the decisions that they make, to me, don't seem to be that tied into what most guitarists are into, if that makes sense. So things like the Acoustasonics and bits and pieces like that, to me, seem like a slightly strange thing to push. And I don't know whether maybe it's because Strats just fly off the shelves anyway, and Tellys, they sell themselves, that maybe you don't have to try. Whereas I think PRS have had to, do a fair bit of work to convince people to try something other than a Gibson or a Fender. And to the point now where, like, an entry-level kind of Gibson, not that cheap either, and with all the QC stuff we hear about them, I feel like maybe PRS are becoming even more of a sensible choice. And if you think about someone like Mark Lettieri, like, why is he playing PRS? Why did John Mayer go over to PRS? I feel like it's because those, not just that there's a financial reason to it, but I feel like they're closer to being able to get what they want for whatever reason. Maybe PRS are actually listening to folks. That's what I seem to be getting the sense of. Like, why is Philip Sayce moving to PRS? Something is not happening at Fender that is happening at PRS, and yeah, I don't know, that seems to be my impression of what's happening. I don't know if you feel the same. Like, as much as I used to feel like PRS guitars were kind of, these very fancy things that kind of, you've got the dentist thing going on with them, right? It's less that for me now, especially when, you got like these Gibson custom collectors and all these like super limited edition things that are creeping up now to sort of 20,000. A Murphy Lab, every other day of the week is going to cost you £8,000, something like that. When that is now somewhat normal, like the PRS now is, in general, kind of not a super expensive proposition in comparison, which is weird, because back when I was looking at these and Gibsons as a kid, the PRS kind of was super unattainable feeling, whereas now it's like, well, there's even more super unattainable kind of Les Pauls and custom shop Strats, master built Strats and all that stuff. It's kind of got a little bit, I don't know, like there's more choice for dentists than ever before. And yet, PRS have been, I think, doing work to actually make the lower end of the market, as much as the price has kind of crept up to a level where I don't think you can really think of these as entry level particularly anymore. They did just bring out the £500 and 24 thing, right? So I think they're still trying to stay in touch with that end of the market as well. and maybe I should try and get hold of one of those types of things and see what they're like. But the DGT SE for me showed me that PRS will do some pretty serious stuff. I bought my one from Peach in the UK, which might be worth checking out because they weigh all of their PRS stuff individually, so you can get an idea of what the weight is before you get your hands on one. And what would you get from Fender or Gibson for this kind of price? I'm not sure. I don't know, if you said to me you can, have a £1,050 budget, would I be looking for anything other than a PRS SE DGT? I don't know what I would be getting that could compete with this sort of thing, look as stylish, sound as good, play as well. The neck shape for me is just perfect. I don't think I'd be looking at a Fender. I don't think I'd be looking at anything from Gibson. The things that you'd be able to get for that kind of money. Is there an American performer anymore? Is that a thing? Gibson wise, I think maybe you might be able to get an entry level kind of SG. But for me, this stands out at that price range. I don't know whether that scales up the whole way, but I feel like the PRS Silver Sky, the core model, stands out in its price range as well as being an incredibly good guitar, I think, compared to some of the Fender stuff that I've played at that price range. So if you can get over the headstock, as always with the PRS stuff, for me, I think it's been cemented as a really sensible option for me. And the more that we see people like Philip Sace, Rob Harris from Jamiroquai playing these Silver Sky and bits and pieces like that, I feel like normalising the idea of playing John Mayer's guitar, it might be a thing that we see other people maybe playing them. So if you're a PRS fan, feel free to jump into the comments and let people know. Or are you someone that would never play one because the headstock is kind of not right? There was a time for me where I felt like PRS didn't suit me as a human or whatever, but I feel like it's just kind of changed, and I'm not likely to go out and buy a core model, but I've played a couple of them that have really stuck with me, and this PRS SE DGT, although it's not their most bling thing, still feels great, plays great, sounds great, and does everything that I want it to do. So yeah, a really sensibly priced guitar considering what you get. It is still made in Indonesia and all that stuff, but actually they've done a good job on them, I think. Long live PRS.